The seventh probe arrived on a Tuesday, if you counted Sovereignty station cycles as days. I had stopped doing that by then. After 6 months aboard Verathon, you learned to measure time the way the Khavreth measured it. In catalog entries, in processed intercepts, in the slow accretion of things logged and filed and closed. Probe 6 had been closed 3 weeks earlier. I had written the entry myself. Derelict, telemetry inert. No crew manifest recovered, hand-modified hull marking, numeral sequence, scratched, not stamped, not printed. Scratched with something narrow, a stylus or a bolt head, reading 6 of 7. Human origin, forward relay class, drift origin, consistent with the collapsed fold point at grid reference Harn 70. Status, non-transmitting, filed, done. Board's assessor Drevak had read that entry aloud to the full intercept board the morning Probe 6 was processed, and there had been a low sound in the chamber that I had come to recognize as Khavreth amusement. Not laughter. They did not laugh. It was more like a collective settling, a slight drop in posture, the sound of 17 analysts deciding simultaneously that the matter in front of them was beneath the dignity of further attention. 6 probes, 6 silences, 6 hull-scratched numbers counting up toward a seventh that, by any reasonable projection, would be as empty as the rest. The seventh arrived on a drift approach consistent with the other 6, and the board convened because the protocol required it. And because Assessor Drevak had, at some point in the preceding months, decided that my presence at these sessions was useful. I was not entirely sure what use he found in me. I cataloged intercepts. I translated human notation systems. I confirmed, with the professional neutrality he seemed to value, that what the board was looking at was genuinely human-made and not a provocation or a forgery. The seventh probe was identical in form to the first 6. A meter-long forward relay casing, matte gray, forward heat shield, scarred from fold transit, the aft thruster cluster dead. The hull marking was there, same position as the others, same depth of scratch, 7 of 7. Drevak noted it. The sequence is complete, he said, and I heard in his voice the precise inflection the Khavreth used when closing a matter they had already decided was settled. Process it. Processing team cracked the relay casing in the board chamber. That was not standard. Standard was to do it in the adjacent bay, recover any internal components, run a diagnostic sweep, and return a summary. But the board was present, and I think Drevak wanted the closure to be witnessed. 6 silent probes deserved a witnessed 7th silence. It would make the catalog entry cleaner. The casing came apart in 2 halves. The processing lead, a junior analyst named Sreth, ran the internal sweep and said nothing for a moment that was slightly too long. Assessor. Her voice had changed register. There is a stored audio file. The chamber went quiet in a different way than it had before. Play it, Drevak said. The audio was clear. No static, no fold degradation, no compression artifacts. Whoever had encoded it had known what they were doing, had known the file would need to survive fold transit intact, had built redundancy into the storage format in a way that suggested they had done this, or had thought very carefully about doing it for the first time. A woman's voice. Calm, not reading, speaking. She practiced it once and decided once was enough. 23 words. I counted them after, because that is what I do when something matters, and I do not yet know how much it matters. To the Khavreth Sovereignty. This is the last of 7. You will know by now that we were trying to reach you. We still are. That was it. That was all. The chamber held its silence, for a span I did not measure. I will tell you what made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and I will tell you carefully, because I wrote the catalog entry 3 hours later, and I chose my words with some care, and I want you to understand the gap between what I wrote and what I knew. The Khavreth Sovereignty, that name, that specific name, in that specific internal configuration. Khavreth Sovereignty, not Khavreth Consortium, not Khavreth Directorate, not the 7 other designations I had seen used in human diplomatic traffic over the preceding decade. That name had been adopted as the official, internal self-designation of the board and its governing apparatus, exactly 4 years ago. It had been a procedural decision, a terminology standardization, the kind of administrative detail that never made it into external communications because it was not considered relevant to external parties. Humanity's diplomatic corps did not have it. Intercept logs confirmed no human transmission had ever used that exact form. I had checked every archived human origin file on Verathon the morning after, working through my sleep cycle and into the next, because I needed to be sure before I said anything. No human file used that name. Probe that carried it had been launched. Sreth calculated the fold transit window backward from the drift approach data. Between 11 and 10 years ago, before the sovereignty designation existed by 7 to 10 years, I sat with that for a long time. I sat with the image of someone, a woman by the voice, calm the way a person is calm when they have accepted that the thing they are doing may not work and have decided to do it anyway, recording 23 words into a relay casing and sealing it, and sending it into a fold collapse point, with no certainty that it would arrive, or arrive intact, or arrive in the right sequence, or arrive when it needed to arrive, and scratching 7 of 7 into the hull with whatever was at hand. Because that is the part that stayed with me. Not the physics of it, not the impossible name, not the implications, that humanity had been working on this problem from a point in time that our diplomatic record said we hadn't yet known we needed to work on it. What stayed with me was the scratch marks. Probe had a perfectly functional hull marking system, stamped registry plates, adhesive designators, 3 standard methods for affixing a serial notation. Someone had used none of them. Someone had taken something hard and narrow and scratched the count into the hull by hand, in a way that would survive anything short of physical destruction. Like they needed to know, wherever it went, whatever happened to it, that it had a number, that it was counted. Probes 1 through 6 had the same marks. I pulled the archive images and checked. Same depth, same angle, same narrow instrument profile, same hand. Someone had stood in front of 7 relay casings, in sequence, and marked each one, knowing 6 of them would almost certainly be silent when they arrived. Marking them anyway, I wrote the catalog entry at my station, while Drevok held the board in closed consultation. I chose my words the way I always choose my words in official records, accurately, specifically, with a professional awareness that accuracy and completeness are not always the same thing. Entry. Probe 7. Hull derelict. Hull marking confirmed, 7 of 7, hand scratched, consistent with probes 1 through 6. Internal component, audio storage module, intact, single recorded file recovered. File contents, 23 words, human female speaker, message directed to the Khavreth Sovereignty. No technical data, no threat assessment required. Status, filed and closed audio file contents. I listed them because the protocol required it. Did not annotate them. I did not note the name problem. I did not note the timeline discrepancy. Those were things for the board to address in their consultation. And I was not a board member. And my job was to catalog, not to interpret. What I wrote in my personal log that night, the one that does not go into the archive, the one I have kept since my first assignment on this station, in a notation system the Khavreth have never asked about and I have never offered to explain, was shorter. She counted them. She knew which number this was. She sent it knowing 5 more were silent. 23 words. Clear enough for a closed chamber, short enough to survive anything. I picked up my stylus and I scratched a small numeral 8 into the corner of my desk blotter, beside nothing, beside the place where a future thing might eventually sit. I did not file that. I just left it there. The official record says no intelligible transmission was recovered. The official record is the official record, and I do not disagree with it in any space that matters. But I know what I heard, and whoever she was, wherever she was when she recorded it, she was counting, and she had not stopped, and she wanted them to know she still wasn't stopping. I thought that was worth keeping track of.